The pay stub arrived on Friday morning and the numbers were wrong, dead wrong. According to the electronic timesheet system, I had worked 37.5 hours the previous week instead of the 52 hours I had actually logged, including 12 hours of overtime. On a critical server migration that had kept me at the office until 3 a.m. on both Tuesday and Wednesday, my regular pay showed 37.5 hours at $28 per hour, with zero overtime compensation, totaling $1,050 instead of the $1,372 I had earned. I stared at my computer screen in the break room, double-checking the math while my coffee grew cold. This wasn't the first discrepancy I'd noticed in recent weeks, but it was the largest and most blatant. I pulled up the electronic timesheet system on my phone and confirmed what I suspected. Someone had altered my submitted hours after I had electronically signed and locked my timesheet on Thursday afternoon. The system showed my last login as Wednesday at 5:47 p.m., but the hours had been modified on Thursday at 11:23 p.m., long after I had gone home and well after the weekly deadline for timesheet submissions. I walked calmly back to my cubicle, opened the bottom drawer of my desk, and retrieved the manila folder where I kept printed copies of all my timesheets, along with badge access logs and email timestamps that documented my actual work hours. What my manager, Patricia Hendricks, didn't realize was that I had been systematically backing up my time records for the past 4 months, ever since I noticed the first suspicious changes to my overtime hours. She also didn't know that our payroll manager, Jennifer Walsh, had been quietly conducting her own investigation into timesheet irregularities after noticing patterns that didn't align with departmental productivity reports. As I organized my documentation and prepared to make the call that would end Patricia's career, I felt a calm satisfaction knowing that her cost-cutting scheme was about to become the most expensive mistake she'd ever made. My name is Tom Bradley, 31 years old, Senior IT Systems Administrator at Cornerstone Financial Services, where I've worked for the past 6 years maintaining critical infrastructure for a mid-sized investment firm. My background includes a computer science degree from State University and several professional certifications in network security and database management. I'm the kind of employee who arrives early, stays late when needed, and takes pride in keeping systems running smoothly even when it means working weekends or responding to emergency calls at 2. My role involves managing servers, networks, and databases that support our trading operations, client services, and regulatory compliance systems. When these systems fail, the company can lose thousands of dollars per minute in trading revenue, face regulatory penalties, or compromise client data security. This responsibility means I frequently work beyond standard business hours, especially during quarterly system updates, security patches, and infrastructure upgrades that must be completed outside market hours. I joined Cornerstone directly after graduation, starting as a junior technician and advancing through consistent performance and additional training. The company culture had always been professional and fair, with management that recognized the irregular hours required for effective IT support and compensated overtime appropriately. My salary had grown from $42,000 initially to $58,000 currently, with overtime pay representing a significant portion of my annual income due to the demands of maintaining 24/7 system availability. Everything changed 8 months ago when Patricia Hendricks was hired as our new IT director, replacing my previous manager who had been promoted to chief technology officer. Patricia came from a larger corporation where she had supposedly implemented efficiency improvements that reduced operational costs while maintaining service quality. Her resume emphasized cost reduction achievements and process optimization, credentials that impressed our CEO, who was facing pressure to control expenses during a challenging market period. Patricia's management style became apparent immediately. She instituted new policies requiring pre-approval for all overtime work, implemented stricter time tracking requirements, and began questioning every expense related to our department. While some oversight was reasonable, Patricia's approach felt more like micromanagement than operational improvement. More concerning were her comments about overtime costs during team meetings. We need to be more efficient with our time, she would say repeatedly. Other departments manage to complete their work within standard hours. IT shouldn't be an exception. These statements revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of our role. Unlike accounting or marketing, IT problems don't respect business hours, and critical system maintenance often requires working during nights and weekends when user disruption is minimized. The first timesheet discrepancy I noticed was minor, 2 hours of overtime that mysteriously disappeared from my submitted timesheet, reducing a 42-hour week to exactly 40 hours. When I questioned Patricia about it, she claimed the overtime hadn't been pre-approved and suggested I had made an error in my time tracking. I accepted her explanation at the time, though I began keeping more detailed records of my actual work hours. Over the following months, similar discrepancies appeared sporadically. An hour here, 2 hours there, always reducing overtime but never touching my regular 40-hour base. The amounts were small enough that they might have been honest mistakes or system glitches, but they occurred frequently enough to create a pattern. More troubling was Patricia's increasing emphasis on staying within budget targets that seemed to prioritize cost reduction over operational necessity. The situation escalated during our quarterly system upgrade in September. A critical security patch required updating all servers during a weekend maintenance window, work that began Saturday morning and continued through Sunday evening due to unexpected compatibility issues. I documented every hour carefully. Saturday 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., 15 hours. Sunday 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 14 hours. For a total of 29 overtime hours in addition to my regular 40-hour work week. When my pay stub arrived the following Friday, the overtime had been reduced to 8 hours, despite my detailed timesheet submission and email communications with Patricia throughout the weekend updating her on our progress. When I confronted her about the discrepancy, her response was telling. The budget only allows for minimal weekend work, she explained. I approved 8 hours of overtime for essential tasks. The additional time was spent on non-critical activities that could have been scheduled during regular hours. This explanation was absurd. Security patches can't be applied during business hours without disrupting trading operations, and the compatibility issues we encountered couldn't have been predicted or prevented. More importantly, Patricia had personally approved the weekend maintenance schedule and had received regular updates about our progress. Her post hoc revision of what constituted essential work was clearly designed to justify fraudulent timesheet alterations. The conversation prompted me to implement a comprehensive documentation system. I began keeping printed copies of all timesheet submissions, saving email confirmations of overtime approval, printing badge access logs that showed my actual building entry and exit times, and maintaining detailed notes about project requirements and time allocations. I also started sending Patricia detailed email summaries of weekend and evening work, creating electronic trails that documented my actual hours. Most importantly, I began forwarding copies of these emails to Jennifer Walsh in Payroll, framing them as routine updates about department overtime expenses. Jennifer had always been helpful with payroll questions, and I noticed she paid careful attention to hour tracking and budget reconciliation. I suspected she might be noticing the same discrepancies I was experiencing. My suspicions were confirmed. In November, when Jennifer called me aside after a company meeting, "Tom, I've been reviewing overtime reports for budget planning," she said carefully. "I'm noticing some inconsistencies in IT department timesheets that don't align with the productivity reports Patricia submits. Are you experiencing any issues with timesheet accuracy?" I explained the discrepancies I had noticed, showing her some of the documentation I had been maintaining. Jennifer's expression grew increasingly concerned as she reviewed my records. "This is serious," she said. "If managers are altering employee timesheets without proper authorization, it's not just a payroll issue, it's potential wage theft and fraud. I need to document everything carefully before taking this higher up the chain." We agreed that I would continue providing detailed documentation while Jennifer conducted her own investigation into timesheet modification patterns. She had access to system logs that could show when and by whom timesheets were altered, information that would be crucial for proving deliberate fraud rather than honest mistakes. The investigation revealed a systematic pattern of timesheet manipulation. Over the past 6 months, Patricia had reduced overtime hours on my timesheets by a total of 127 hours, representing approximately $5,715 in stolen wages. She had also been modifying timesheets for 2 other IT staff members, though to a lesser extent. Most damaging was the discovery that these modifications always occurred after the official timesheet deadline, indicating deliberate fraud rather than approved adjustments. Jennifer's analysis also revealed that Patricia had been submitting falsified productivity reports to senior management, claiming that IT department efficiency improvements had reduced overtime requirements while maintaining service quality. These reports directly contradicted the actual workload data and system maintenance requirements that Jennifer could verify through other sources. Armed with this evidence, Jennifer and I decided to present our findings to the company's chief financial officer, Robert Chun, who had ultimate responsibility for payroll integrity and regulatory compliance. A meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in December, with both Jennifer and I prepared to present comprehensive documentation of the timesheet fraud. The presentation was methodical and damning. Jennifer showed Robert the system logs proving unauthorized timesheet modifications, while I provided documentation of my actual work hours and the business necessity of overtime work that had been fraudulently denied. Most importantly, we demonstrated the pattern of systematic theft that had been occurring over months. "This is wage theft," Robert confirmed after reviewing our documentation. "It's also fraud against the company since Patricia has been misrepresenting our operational costs and efficiency to senior management. We need to involve legal counsel immediately." Robert's immediate actions were swift and comprehensive. Patricia was suspended pending investigation, with access to all company systems immediately revoked. A forensic accounting firm was engaged to conduct a complete audit of timesheet records and payroll practices. Most importantly, the company's legal department initiated proceedings to recover stolen wages and pursue potential criminal charges against Patricia. The forensic audit revealed the full scope of Patricia's fraud. Over 8 months, she had stolen approximately $23,000 in overtime wages from IT staff while simultaneously claiming $47,000 in operational cost savings through efficiency improvements. She had also been manipulating vendor invoices and equipment purchases to inflate her apparent cost reduction achievements. The criminal investigation uncovered that Patricia had been facing serious financial pressures due to gambling debts and had viewed the timesheet manipulation as a temporary solution to meet budget targets, while buying time to address her personal problems. This explanation didn't excuse the fraud but provided context for her increasingly desperate behavior. Patricia was terminated immediately upon completion of the investigation. Criminal charges were filed for wage theft, fraud, and embezzlement. The company faced no regulatory penalties due to our proactive reporting and cooperation with authorities, though they implemented additional oversight procedures to prevent similar fraud in the future. Most satisfying was the financial resolution. I received full payment of stolen wages plus interest and penalties, totaling approximately $6,800. The company also provided a performance bonus recognizing my role in exposing the fraud and protecting company assets. My 2 colleagues who had also been victims of timesheet manipulation received similar compensation. The new IT director, Marcus Thompson, was hired 3 months later with a clear mandate to restore proper operational procedures and rebuild team morale. Marcus had extensive experience with 24/7 system management and understood the realities of IT overtime requirements. Under his leadership, the department returned to proper time tracking and fair compensation practices. More broadly, the incident led to company-wide improvements in payroll oversight and management accountability. New procedures required dual authorization for timesheet modifications, regular audits of overtime patterns, and direct employee reporting channels for wage and hour concerns. These changes benefited all employees, not just those in IT. The experience taught me valuable lessons about documentation, workplace rights, and the importance of speaking up when fraudulent behavior is suspected. My systematic record-keeping had been motivated initially by self-protection, but it ultimately protected my colleagues and the company itself from ongoing financial crime. 1 year later, I was promoted to Senior Systems Administrator with a substantial salary increase and expanded responsibilities. Marcus specifically noted my attention to detail and professional integrity as factors in the promotion decision. The additional income more than compensated for the temporary stress and uncertainty during the fraud investigation. Looking back on Patricia's timesheet manipulation scheme, I recognized that her most critical error wasn't the fraud itself, but her assumption that employees wouldn't notice or couldn't prove systematic wage theft. By maintaining detailed records and building relationships with other employees who shared my concerns, I had created multiple layers of documentation that made her denials impossible to sustain. My manager changed my timesheets to cut costs. She didn't know Payroll had my backup, comprehensive documentation that revealed not just isolated timesheet changes, but a systematic pattern of fraud that ultimately cost her job, her professional reputation, and her freedom. The backup records weren't just about protecting my wages. They were about maintaining the integrity of workplace relationships and ensuring that honest employees receive fair compensation for their contributions. The most important outcome wasn't recovering stolen wages, but establishing workplace procedures that protect all employees from similar fraud. Today, working under ethical management with proper oversight systems, I'm reminded that documentation and professional integrity serve not just individual interests but collective workplace rights that benefit everyone when properly maintained and defended. The experience reinforced that employee rights depend not just on legal protections, but on individual vigilance and willingness to document and report misconduct when it occurs. Sometimes the most effective defense against workplace fraud is simply keeping good records and building relationships with colleagues who share your commitment to honest business practices.